Emma lived in a small, quiet town at the edge of a green forest. Her house was simple, with a red roof and a little garden where flowers bloomed in every color. Every morning the sunlight spilled across her room, waking her gently. She loved mornings because they felt peaceful, full of fresh air and quiet sounds. Birds sang in the trees and the wind moved the leaves like soft music. One morning as Emma stretched and yawned, she heard a faint sound outside her door. She sat up and listened carefully. The sound was soft, almost like scratching, but gentle and slow. Emma frowned and got out of bed. She tiptoed to the door, her heart beating fast with curiosity. When she opened the door slightly, she saw a big German shepherd standing on the porch. His fur was a mix of black and brown, shiny in the morning sun. His eyes were warm, intelligent, and full of kindness. He looked at her with a quiet patience, as if he had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Emma gasped softly. "Hello," she said, unsure what else to do. The dog wagged his tail slowly but did not move forward. He sat down on the porch, keeping a respectful distance. Emma noticed he had a collar, but there was no tag. She knelt down slightly to get a better look. "Where did you come from?" she asked in a whisper. The dog stayed calm and simply blinked at her, tilting his head in a way that seemed thoughtful. Emma laughed quietly. "You are a funny dog," she said. "But why are you here?" She closed the door gently and went back to her room. Her mind raced with questions. Who did this dog belong to? Was he lost? Why did he come here every morning? She peeked out of the window and the dog was still there, waiting patiently. His ears twitched as he noticed her looking at him. The next day, the same thing happened. The dog appeared at dawn, sitting quietly on the porch. Emma's curiosity grew stronger. She wanted to touch him, to see if he was friendly. But her parents had always told her not to bring strangers inside. That rule included people and animals alike. She respected it, even though her heart longed to call him in. Days passed, and each morning the German shepherd returned. Emma started naming him in her mind. She called him Shadow, because he seemed to follow the sunrise like a silent companion. Shadow never barked, never growled. He only sat patient and calm, looking at her with eyes that seemed to understand her thoughts. Emma began leaving small gifts for him. She would put bits of bread or a small bowl of milk on the porch. Shadow accepted them politely, never rushing, never knocking the bowls over. Emma watched from the window as he ate slowly, making sure every bite was savored. She smiled and felt a warmth in her chest. One morning, Emma decided to speak to her parents. "Mom, Dad, there is a dog outside," she said, tugging on their sleeves. "He comes here every morning. Can we keep him?" Her parents looked at each other and then at Emma. "We don't know whose dog he is," her mother said softly. "We cannot just take him in. Maybe he belongs to someone." Emma's father added, "He is a beautiful dog, Emma. But we need to be careful. We can put up posters or check if someone lost him. That is the right thing to do." Emma nodded but felt a small pang of sadness. She had grown attached to Shadow in just a few days. She had already imagined him running through the garden, chasing butterflies and sleeping by her side at night. But rules were rules, and she had to wait. Each morning she would wake up and look out the window. Shadow would be there, sitting quietly, watching her with the same calm expression. Sometimes Emma would wave at him, and he would wag his tail slowly. She whispered small greetings to him, even though he could not answer. "Good morning, Shadow," she said. "Did you sleep well?" The dog's presence became a comfort to Emma. He seemed to make the mornings brighter. Even the smallest sounds of birds or rustling leaves seemed more alive when he was there. Emma realized that Shadow had a way of making her feel safe. He was strong yet gentle, and he seemed to know when she was happy or sad. One afternoon, Emma went into the garden to water the flowers. She noticed a butterfly struggling in the grass. It had its wings caught in a small spider web. Emma gently freed it and watched it fly away. Shadow appeared at the gate, sitting silently. He tilted his head and watched her with interest. Emma laughed softly. "You like watching too, don't you?" she asked. Shadow blinked slowly, as if agreeing. As the days passed, Emma's bond with Shadow grew stronger, even from a distance. She learned to read his expressions. If he lifted his paw, it meant he was curious. If his ears twitched, he had heard something important. Emma felt like they shared a secret language. She could tell when Shadow was happy or when he seemed lonely. One rainy morning, Emma woke to the sound of rain tapping on her window. She looked outside and saw Shadow standing at the porch, wet but calm. He shook his fur, sending small drops of water flying. Emma felt a rush of sympathy. She wanted to bring him inside, to wrap him in a warm towel and let him dry in front of the fireplace. Her parents were still asleep, and Emma knew she had to follow the rules. She ran to the kitchen, grabbed a small blanket and gently threw it over the porch railing. Shadow nudged it with his nose and sat down on it, shaking off the rain. Emma smiled and waved at him. He wagged his tail slowly, and for a moment, Emma felt like he was smiling back. The next day, Emma's parents agreed to let her check if anyone had lost a dog nearby. They walked through the neighborhood, holding Shadow's leash carefully. Emma was nervous, but Shadow stayed calm beside her. People greeted them warmly, but nobody claimed the dog. Shadow wagged his tail at every friendly face, but he stayed close to Emma. When they returned home, Emma felt a strong bond forming. Shadow was no longer just a visitor. He had become part of her life in a quiet, gentle way. She knew that something special was happening, something that could change both their lives forever. Emma's days began to revolve around Shadow. She would wake up early just to see him waiting at the door. She would run to the porch with a small treat in her hand, and he would take it politely, then sit by her side as if thanking her. They would play in the garden for hours, chasing imaginary balls, running through the grass and laughing in the sunshine. Even in the evenings, Shadow stayed close. Emma would read her favorite storybooks and he would lie at her feet listening quietly. His presence was comforting, almost like a friend who understood her completely. Emma whispered her secrets to him, and though he could not speak, she felt he always listened. One morning, as Emma sat on the porch, she realized something. Shadow had never left, not even for a single day. He had been waiting patiently through sunshine and rain for her. That made Emma feel special. She knew that she had found a friend who would never give up on her, just as she would never give up on him. Emma hugged her knees and smiled. "I think you are not just a dog," she whispered. "You are my friend. You have chosen me, and I will choose you too." Shadow wagged his tail slowly, as if agreeing. In that moment, Emma understood something important about kindness, patience, and friendship. She did not know what the future held, but she felt ready to face it with Shadow by her side. He was more than a dog. He was a loyal companion, a quiet guardian, and a friend who had come into her life in the most unexpected way. Emma knew that their story was just beginning, and that the bond they shared would grow stronger with every sunrise. From that morning onward, Emma felt a sense of happiness she had never known. Shadow had come to her door every dawn, not just to be fed or cared for, but to be with her. Emma realized that sometimes the most meaningful friendships come quietly, patiently, and without a word. She hugged her knees, looking at Shadow sitting calmly on the porch, and whispered softly, "Thank you for finding me." Shadow blinked slowly and wagged his tail, a gentle promise that he would never leave. The sun rose higher, and the day began. Birds sang in the trees, the wind rustled through the leaves, and Emma felt a deep joy in her heart. She knew that with Shadow by her side, every morning would bring new adventures, laughter, and a friendship that would last a lifetime. The next morning, Emma woke earlier than usual. Sunlight had barely touched the roof of her house, but she could already hear the soft rustle of leaves in the garden. She ran to the window and saw Shadow sitting patiently on the porch. His tail gave a slow, gentle wag when he saw her. Emma's heart leapt. She had spent every day wondering what it would feel like to bring him inside, to let him step across the threshold of her home. Her parents were still asleep, and for the first time she thought maybe she could take a small step forward. She opened the door a little wider than usual. "Good morning, Shadow," she said softly. He tilted his head, looking curious, as if he understood her question without words. Emma knelt down, holding out her hand. Shadow sniffed it carefully, then nudged it gently with his nose. Emma's parents had always taught her to respect animals' comfort zones. She knew Shadow had never been inside a house, so she did not push him. She spoke to him in a quiet, friendly voice. "Would you like to come inside just a little? You can stay right here near the door if you want." Shadow stepped forward cautiously. One paw, then the other, crossed the threshold of Emma's home. His eyes scanned the room, curious but calm. Emma's heart raced with excitement. "Good boy," she whispered. She gave him a small treat, and he ate it politely, looking up at her as if to say thank you. Emma sat on the floor beside him. Shadow leaned slightly against her, a gentle pressure that made her smile. For the first time, she realized how much she had missed having a companion inside her home. He was quiet, calm, and careful, never touching anything he should not. Her parents came into the kitchen, yawning and rubbing their eyes. "Emma, what is happening here?" her father asked, surprised but smiling. Shadow wagged his tail, looking at them calmly. "He came inside," Emma said, her voice full of joy. "Just for a little while. He is gentle and quiet. Can he stay a little longer?" Her mother knelt down to examine Shadow. "He is very well behaved," she said. "But we need to make sure he is healthy and has no owners looking for him." Emma nodded eagerly. "We can call the neighbors and we can make posters later. I just wanted him to feel safe inside." Her parents agreed. They decided to let Shadow stay inside for the morning, and Emma made him a soft place to sit near the fireplace. Shadow lay down carefully, curling his paws under him. He closed his eyes and seemed to relax in a way Emma had never seen before. Emma spent the day playing with Shadow. She tossed a small ball across the living room, and he gently nudged it back with his nose. They laughed together as he learned simple tricks like sitting when she held her hand up or waiting patiently for a treat. Every small success brought a sparkle to Emma's eyes. As afternoon came, Emma's mother brought out a brush. "I think he might enjoy a little grooming," she said. Shadow stood patiently while she brushed his fur and Emma helped, learning how soft his coat really was. Shadow's eyes half closed as if he were smiling. Emma realized that Shadow was more than just a visitor. He was becoming part of her family, part of her home. She loved seeing him so calm and happy, and she felt proud that he trusted her enough to step inside. Later that day, Emma's father suggested a walk. "Shadow seems comfortable here, but he also needs to explore outside," he said. Emma and Shadow went into the garden together. Shadow ran across the grass, sniffing every corner, then came back to Emma, wagging his tail happily. She laughed and held out her hands for him to jump lightly. On their walk, Emma noticed something unusual. Shadow seemed to recognize the path to the forest edge near their home. He paused, ears perked, and looked at her. "Do you want to see something?" Emma asked. Shadow barked softly, a sound that made her giggle. He began walking ahead slowly, looking back to make sure she followed. They reached a small clearing filled with wildflowers. Shadow sniffed the air and ran around in circles, chasing shadows of the trees in the wind. Emma sat on a log watching him. It made her heart happy to see him so free and playful. Shadow suddenly paused and looked toward the trees. His ears twitched as he heard something. Emma followed his gaze and saw a small squirrel darting across the ground. Shadow did not chase it aggressively. Instead, he watched, his eyes calm, almost curious. Emma realized that Shadow had a gentle spirit. He could be strong, but he was never unkind. As the sun began to set, Emma led Shadow back to the house. They walked slowly, enjoying the cool evening air. Emma carried a small water bowl for him, and Shadow drank patiently. When they reached the porch, Emma's father greeted them. "Looks like he enjoyed the walk," he said with a smile. Emma nodded. "He did, and I think he likes being inside too." Shadow wagged his tail as if agreeing. That evening, Emma made Shadow a cozy bed in the corner of the living room. She placed a soft blanket and a small pillow for him. Shadow sniffed it carefully, then lay down, curling up comfortably. Emma sat nearby, reading a story aloud. Shadow lifted his head occasionally, listening to her voice, then rested again. Emma's parents watched quietly. "He seems very happy here," her mother said. "I think it is safe to let him stay as long as we take care of him and look for any owners." Emma's father nodded. "He has chosen you, Emma, and it looks like you have chosen him too. Just remember to be responsible and he will be a wonderful companion." Emma felt a rush of happiness. She realized that taking care of Shadow was not just about feeding him or giving him a place to sleep. It was about love, patience, and understanding. Shadow had trusted her enough to step inside, and she would honor that trust every day. That night, Emma stayed up a little longer than usual. She watched Shadow sleep peacefully in his new bed. She thought about how every morning he had come to her door, patiently waiting, never giving up. Emma felt grateful for his loyalty and kindness. She whispered softly, "Thank you for trusting me, Shadow. I promise to take care of you." Shadow twitched his ears slightly as if he had heard her words. Emma smiled and closed her eyes. For the first time, she felt the warmth of having a true friend inside her home. She dreamed of many days ahead, full of laughter, games, and adventures with Shadow. The next morning, Shadow was already on the porch, waiting as always. Emma opened the door, smiling brightly. "Good morning, Shadow," she said. "Do you want breakfast first, or shall we play outside?" Shadow wagged his tail, ready for whatever she decided. Emma realized that their bond had grown stronger. He was no longer just a dog who visited. He was her companion, her friend, and a part of her world. She felt lucky that someone so gentle and loyal had chosen her to care for him. As days turned into weeks, Shadow became a constant presence in Emma's life. He followed her to the garden, waited by the door when she went inside, and slept near her bed at night. Emma learned more about him every day. His favorite games, the way he liked to be brushed, the soft way he nudged her when he wanted attention. Emma also learned patience. Shadow had come to her slowly, one step at a time, and she had learned to wait, to respect his pace, and to earn his trust. She understood that friendship, especially one built on kindness and understanding, could grow quietly and beautifully, if nurtured carefully. Emma's heart was full of joy. She had found a friend who would never leave. A companion who understood her without words, and a loyal presence who made her home feel warmer and happier. Shadow had stepped inside her life, not just her house, and Emma knew their story was only beginning. As the days passed, Emma and Shadow grew closer. Each morning, Emma would run to the porch as soon as she woke up, and Shadow would greet her with a gentle wag of his tail. Sometimes he would bring a stick from the garden or a small leaf he had found, as if trying to share a gift with her. Emma laughed every time and praised him warmly. One sunny morning, Emma decided to take Shadow further into the neighborhood. She had noticed a small park a few streets away, filled with flowers and open grass, and thought it would be a perfect place for him to explore. Emma carried a small leash just in case, but Shadow walked beside her calmly, as if he had always known how to behave in the presence of people. The park was quiet when they arrived. Birds were singing, and the soft breeze moved the tall grass like a gentle wave. Shadow sniffed every corner, occasionally sitting down to watch Emma as she ran along the path. Emma felt a rush of happiness. She had never had a companion like him before, someone who could share her excitement and curiosity. While they were walking, a small group of children appeared near the swings. At first, Emma worried that Shadow might be nervous or protective, but he stayed close to her side, tail wagging calmly. The children noticed Shadow immediately. "Look at that dog," one of them exclaimed. "He is so big and friendly." Emma smiled. "His name is Shadow," she said proudly. "He is very gentle." The children approached slowly, and Shadow allowed them to pet him carefully. He did not move too quickly or suddenly, and his eyes were soft, showing that he trusted Emma completely. The children laughed as he gently nudged them with his nose, making small, playful sounds. Emma felt proud. Shadow was not only her friend, but he could also make new friends easily. After a while, Emma and Shadow wandered to a small clearing near the park. The grass was soft and the sunlight fell in warm patches. Shadow ran ahead, chasing the shadows of the trees and sniffing flowers, but always returned to Emma when she called. Emma sat on the ground and watched him, feeling a quiet happiness she had never experienced before. She noticed something interesting. Shadow sometimes paused to look at the horizon, tilting his head as if he was listening to something far away. Emma followed his gaze and saw the forest near their home, dense and green. Shadow seemed to remember it, and Emma realized that he might have come from somewhere nearby, but there was no sign of anyone, and Shadow stayed calmly by her side. Emma spent hours with Shadow in the park, playing simple games and exploring the small trails. She learned more about his personality. He was curious but careful. He was strong but never rough. He had a quiet patience that made her feel safe. When she tripped slightly on a small root, Shadow nudged her gently as if checking she was okay. Emma hugged him tightly, whispering, Thank you for watching over me." As the sun began to lower in the sky, Emma decided it was time to return home. Shadow followed her closely, walking calmly along the path. On the way back, Emma thought about how much her life had changed in just a few weeks. Shadow had become her friend, her companion, and her protector in a way she did not fully understand. Back at home, Emma's parents were preparing dinner. They watched as Shadow entered the house, carrying himself with quiet confidence. "He is really part of our family now," her mother said, smiling. Emma nodded happily. Shadow wagged his tail as he approached his cozy corner in the living room. After dinner, Emma decided to teach Shadow a new trick. She wanted him to learn how to gently bring her small toys back when she threw them. Shadow watched her carefully, tilting his head, and then tried to follow her instructions. At first he was clumsy, but he never gave up. Emma encouraged him with soft words and small treats. Slowly, Shadow learned to pick up the toy, carry it gently, and drop it near her feet. Emma clapped her hands and laughed. "You did it, Shadow. You are amazing." Shadow wagged his tail, looking proud. Emma felt a warmth in her heart. She realized that trust was something that grew little by little. Just as Shadow had trusted her enough to come inside, he was now learning to trust her guidance and care. She felt a deep connection with him, stronger than she had ever felt with anyone else. The following morning, Emma woke up to find Shadow already sitting at the porch, as usual. She opened the door and he stepped inside immediately, as if he had a clear understanding that this was his home now. Emma smiled. "Good morning, Shadow. Are you ready for another adventure?" Shadow wagged his tail and followed her to the garden. Emma had an idea for the day. She wanted to explore the small forest near their house with Shadow. Her parents agreed, but reminded her to stay safe. Emma nodded eagerly and called Shadow to follow her. He ran ahead slightly, always returning to her side to make sure she was close. The forest was alive with sounds of birds, insects, and rustling leaves. Sunlight fell through the trees in warm patches. Shadow moved confidently through the undergrowth, sniffing and exploring, but never straying too far. Emma felt a thrill of excitement. She had never explored the forest so freely before, and having Shadow with her made her feel safe and brave. They walked deeper into the forest, finding a small stream with clear, sparkling water. Shadow sniffed at the edge, then stepped carefully to drink. Emma knelt beside him, dipping her hands into the cool water. "This is perfect," she whispered. Shadow tilted his head, watching her as if he agreed. Emma noticed a small family of birds near the stream. Shadow did not chase them, but instead sat quietly beside Emma, watching. She realized that he had a gentle soul. He could be strong and protective, but he also understood the beauty of calm moments. Emma felt grateful to have such a friend who respected nature and her feelings. As they explored, Emma and Shadow discovered small wonders. A patch of wildflowers, a fallen log perfect for climbing, and a small clearing where the sunlight felt golden. Emma laughed as Shadow chased the shadows of leaves on the ground. She felt free and happy, knowing that these adventures were moments she would always remember. When it was time to leave, Emma called Shadow, and he returned immediately. She noticed how he always stayed close, never leaving her side. It made her realize that Shadow was not just loyal because of food or comfort, but because of the bond they shared. They understood each other without words, and that trust was rare and beautiful. Back home, Emma's parents listened eagerly as she described their adventures. Shadow lay on the floor, tail wagging, enjoying the attention and calm atmosphere. Emma felt proud. She had helped him adjust to a new home, taught him new tricks, and shared special moments of exploration. Shadow had also taught her about patience, kindness, and the joy of quiet companionship. That evening, Emma sat beside Shadow, brushing his fur gently. "You have taught me so much, Shadow," she said softly. "I will always take care of you, and I know you will always be by my side." Shadow leaned into her touch, eyes half closed, a silent promise that he understood. As night fell, Emma realized something important. Friendship was more than playing or spending time together. It was about trust, understanding, and respect. Shadow had come to her door patiently every dawn, and she had learned to respect him and his pace. Now he was fully part of her life, and their bond had grown deeper than she could have imagined. Emma's parents smiled as they watched her with Shadow. "You two have formed a wonderful connection," her father said. "It is rare to find such a loyal friend." Emma nodded, feeling happiness fill her heart. She knew that Shadow had not just come into her life by chance. He had chosen her, just as she had chosen him. Emma hugged Shadow gently before going to bed. Shadow lay beside her, calm and protective, ready to rest after a day full of adventure. Emma drifted to sleep with a sense of joy, knowing that she had a friend who would always be by her side. The next morning, as the sun rose, Emma opened the door, and Shadow was already waiting. His tail wagged slowly and his eyes sparkled with quiet excitement. Emma smiled brightly. "Are you ready for another day, Shadow?" She knew that together they would discover more adventures, learn more about each other, and grow even closer. Shadow stepped inside, and Emma felt a sense of peace. The world outside might be big and unpredictable, but she knew that with Shadow by her side she could face anything. Their friendship had grown from quiet patience to trust, from small gestures to shared adventures. Emma realized that the best companions were those who stayed with you, not because they had to, but because they chose to. Emma hugged Shadow one last time before breakfast, and he leaned into her warmth, a silent promise that their story would continue. The mornings, the adventures, the quiet moments, they were all just the beginning of a lifelong friendship, one built on kindness, trust, and love. One bright morning, Emma woke to the familiar sight of Shadow sitting patiently on the porch. His tail wagged gently when he saw her, and his eyes seemed alert as if he had noticed something unusual. Emma smiled and opened the door. "Good morning, Shadow. Ready for an adventure today?" Shadow stepped inside immediately, his paws soft on the floor. Emma grabbed his leash and together they walked to the garden. She had an idea for a new exploration. There was a part of the forest they had not visited before, a narrow trail that led to a small hill. Emma had seen it from the distance and wondered what secrets it might hold. Shadow seemed eager, sniffing the air and moving with careful excitement. As they entered the trail, the forest felt alive. Birds sang in the branches above, and the sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating patterns on the ground. Shadow led the way, stopping occasionally to sniff flowers or small patches of moss. Emma followed closely, feeling a mix of curiosity and joy. After walking for some time, they reached a small clearing surrounded by tall trees. In the center was an old wooden box, partially hidden under fallen leaves. Emma gasped softly. "Shadow, look at this. Do you think it's some kind of treasure?" Shadow sniffed the box carefully, then nudged it with his nose. The lid was slightly loose, and Emma leaned closer to see inside. To her surprise, the box contained a small collection of items, a faded notebook, a wooden figurine, and a small key tied with a ribbon. Emma picked them up gently, feeling excitement and wonder. She opened the notebook and saw sketches of animals, flowers, and people. Some pages had short notes written in careful handwriting. Emma's mind raced with questions. Who had left these items here? Why had they been hidden in the forest? Shadow sat beside her, watching quietly, as if he understood that this was something important. Emma whispered softly, "We need to find out more, Shadow. This could be a real mystery." She carefully placed the items back in the box and tied the lid. Shadow sniffed the air, then looked at her, ready to continue exploring. Emma felt a sense of adventure she had never known before. The forest suddenly seemed full of secrets waiting to be discovered. As they walked further along the trail, Emma noticed small footprints on the soft ground. They were not human, but they were not animals either. Shadow stopped and sniffed the prints, tilting his head curiously. Emma followed his gaze and saw that the footprints led to a cluster of bushes. She gently moved the branches aside and found a small, hidden path. The path was narrow and winding, leading to a part of the forest that seemed untouched. Sunlight barely reached the ground, and the air smelled fresh with the scent of pine and earth. Emma felt a thrill of excitement. "Shadow, I think we are the first ones to find this place," she whispered. Shadow barked softly as if agreeing and walked carefully ahead. After a few minutes, they reached a small stream. The water was clear, and tiny fish swam near the surface. Emma knelt down and dipped her hands in the cool water. Shadow followed, drinking gently from the stream. Emma felt peaceful, as if the forest was welcoming them. She realized that Shadow's presence made her feel brave and confident. While they rested by the stream, Emma remembered the notebook in the wooden box. She wished she could study it more closely. Perhaps it contained clues about the forest or the person who had hidden the items. Shadow lay beside her, watching the water ripple, and Emma felt grateful for his calm companionship. Suddenly, Shadow's ears perked up. He stood quickly and barked softly, then ran a few steps ahead. Emma followed, curious and careful. Shadow stopped near a tree, sniffing something on the ground. Emma looked closer and saw a small carved symbol on the tree trunk. It was the same shape as the wooden figurine from the box. Emma's heart raced. "Shadow, this must mean something," she whispered. She picked up the figurine and compared it with the carving. They were identical. Emma felt a sense of discovery and excitement. Shadow wagged his tail, as if encouraging her to continue. Emma decided to follow the path a little further. The trail led them to a gentle hill, covered with soft grass and wildflowers. At the top they could see the town in the distance. The view was beautiful, but Emma noticed something unusual near the edge of the hill. A small stone structure hidden among the grass seemed old and forgotten. Shadow sniffed the area carefully, then sat down, watching Emma. She approached the structure and realized it was a small, hollowed stone box. Inside, she found more items: a tiny lantern, a piece of cloth with a pattern, and another small key. Emma picked them up gently. She felt like she was following a trail left by someone long ago. "Shadow, this is amazing," Emma whispered. "It's like a secret story waiting for us to discover." Shadow barked softly as if sharing her excitement. Emma felt a deep sense of happiness. The forest had given her a mystery, and she had Shadow to share it with her. As they rested on the hill, Emma thought about how much she had learned from Shadow. He had been patient, calm, and loyal. He had guided her gently, never rushing or leaving her side. Emma realized that having a friend like Shadow made her feel brave and curious. She was willing to explore new places because he was there with her. After a while, Emma and Shadow decided to return home. They carefully retraced their steps along the hidden path, past the stream and through the narrow trail. Shadow walked beside her, alert and watchful, making sure they stayed safe. Emma felt a deep sense of trust in him. He was more than a companion. He was a guardian and a friend. When they reached the garden, Emma's parents were waiting. They smiled when they saw Shadow and Emma coming home together. "Did you have a good adventure?" her mother asked. Emma nodded eagerly. "Yes, and we found something special," she said. She carefully showed them the wooden box and the new items they had discovered on the hill. Her parents examined the items with interest. "These must have been hidden for a long time," her father said. "It looks like someone wanted to leave a story or treasure in the forest. You two have discovered it carefully and safely." Emma smiled proudly. "Shadow helped me. He guided me through the forest and kept me safe. I think we found a secret that was waiting for someone like us." Shadow wagged his tail as if agreeing with her. Emma felt a deep sense of happiness. She realized that adventures were more meaningful when shared with a true friend. That night, Emma placed the new items carefully on her desk. She planned to study them and perhaps learn more about the person who had hidden them. Shadow lay nearby, calm and protective, keeping watch as she arranged the treasures. Emma felt a sense of purpose and excitement. As she got ready for bed, Emma whispered to Shadow, "We will keep discovering these secrets together. I am glad you are here with me." Shadow leaned his head against her gently, a silent promise that he would always be by her side. Emma smiled and closed her eyes, dreaming of the adventures they had yet to have. The next morning, Shadow was already waiting on the porch, alert and ready. Emma opened the door and stepped outside. "Are you ready for another day, Shadow?" she asked. Shadow wagged his tail and stepped inside as if saying yes. Emma felt a surge of happiness. With Shadow by her side, every day was filled with new possibilities, discoveries, and moments of joy. Emma knew that their friendship was growing stronger every day. Shadow had taught her patience, trust, and the courage to explore. Together they had uncovered a mystery, discovered hidden treasures, and shared moments of wonder. Emma realized that the best adventures were those experienced with someone who cared, someone who understood, and someone who would never leave your side. As the sun rose higher in the sky, Emma and Shadow stepped into the garden. Birds sang, the wind moved the trees, and the forest beyond seemed full of secrets waiting to be discovered. Emma looked at Shadow and smiled. "Let's see what today brings," she whispered. Shadow wagged his tail, ready to follow her wherever she went. In that moment, Emma understood something important. Friendship was not just about play or fun. It was about trust, loyalty, and sharing experiences. Shadow had come to her patiently every morning, and she had learned to care for him and understand him. Now together they were ready for anything. Emma hugged Shadow gently before starting the day. Shadow leaned into her warmth, a quiet promise that their adventures would continue. The forest, the town, and the small secrets hidden among the trees were waiting, and Emma felt ready to explore them all with her best friend by her side. The morning sun rose softly over Emma's house. Shadow was already waiting at the porch, his tail wagging gently. Emma opened the door with a bright smile. "Good morning, Shadow," she said. "Today feels special, don't you think?" Shadow stepped inside, his paws quiet on the floor, and followed Emma to the garden. Emma had a plan. She wanted to explore the forest once more, hoping to uncover more of the hidden secrets they had discovered the day before. Shadow followed her closely, alert and eager, as if he understood that today might hold something important. The forest seemed alive with whispers of wind and the songs of birds. Emma felt a thrill of excitement. As they walked along the familiar trail, Emma noticed how Shadow had become a guide. He sniffed the ground carefully, paused at small sounds, and led her toward new paths that they had not explored before. Emma smiled, realizing that their bond had grown stronger. Shadow was not just a companion. He was a loyal friend who shared her curiosity and joy. After walking for a while, they reached a small glade where sunlight fell in warm patches. Shadow sniffed the area, then barked softly, a sound that made Emma pay closer attention. Near a large tree, partially hidden under moss and leaves, she noticed a small wooden crate. It was similar to the boxes they had found before, but smaller. Emma knelt down and opened it carefully. Inside, she found a few more items: a tiny lantern, a small book with blank pages, and a smooth stone shaped like a heart. Emma's eyes lit up. "Shadow, look at this. It's another part of the mystery." Shadow sniffed the crate, then nudged it gently with his nose. Emma laughed softly. "You like helping me find things, don't you?" Shadow wagged his tail as if answering yes. Emma sat on the grass and examined the items. She decided that the small book could be a place to write about their adventures. She opened it and began to draw pictures of Shadow, the forest, and the paths they had explored together. Shadow lay beside her, watching intently as she worked. Every now and then he nudged her hand gently, as if encouraging her to continue. The smooth, heart-shaped stone reminded Emma of something important. It was a symbol of friendship, trust, and care. She held it in her hand and thought about Shadow, who had come to her every morning, waiting patiently at her door. He had chosen her as a friend, and she had chosen him. That connection was stronger than any treasure or secret. After a while, Emma decided to return home. She placed the items carefully back in the crate, planning to study them more later. Shadow followed her closely, moving with quiet confidence. On the way back, Emma felt a sense of peace. The forest had been full of wonders, but the most wonderful thing of all was the friendship she shared with Shadow. Back at home, Emma's parents were waiting. They smiled as they saw Shadow and Emma returning from the forest. "Did you have a good morning?" her mother asked. Emma nodded eagerly. "Yes, and we found another hidden box. Shadow helped me find it." Shadow wagged his tail happily, enjoying the attention. Her father examined the crate carefully. "It seems that someone left these items to share a story or a secret. You and Shadow discovered them safely and with care. That is very special." Emma nodded, feeling proud. Shadow had been patient and loyal, guiding her gently and keeping her safe. She realized that their friendship had made these discoveries possible. Emma spent the afternoon writing in the small book she had found. She drew pictures of Shadow, the forest, and the hidden boxes. She wrote about the paths they had walked, the stream, the glade, and the hill. Shadow lay nearby, listening quietly, occasionally nudging her hand as if to say, "I am here with you." That evening, Emma prepared a small meal for Shadow. She filled his bowl with fresh water and a few pieces of his favorite food. Shadow ate politely, then looked at her with warm eyes as if thanking her. Emma laughed softly. "You are welcome, Shadow. You deserve everything." She felt a deep happiness. Shadow was not just a pet. He was a true friend, loyal, kind, and gentle. After dinner, Emma's parents suggested a family walk in the garden. Shadow followed them closely, moving with careful curiosity. The garden felt peaceful, with flowers swaying in the evening breeze. Emma realized that Shadow had made their home warmer, happier, and full of love. He had become part of the family, not just a visitor or companion. That night, Emma placed Shadow's bed near her own. He lay down quietly, his head resting near her feet. Emma hugged a small blanket and whispered softly, "Shadow, I am glad you came to my door every morning. You have made my life brighter." Shadow leaned into her gently, a quiet gesture of trust and affection. Emma smiled and closed her eyes, feeling safe and happy. The next morning, Emma woke to the sound of soft scratching at the door. She laughed, recognizing it immediately. Shadow had returned to his usual spot, waiting patiently. Emma opened the door with a bright smile. "Good morning, Shadow. Are you ready for another day?" Shadow stepped inside and wagged his tail, eager for the day ahead. Emma decided to explore the town with Shadow. She wanted to show him the small park where children played, the little library where she loved to read, and the bakery that always smelled of fresh bread. Shadow walked beside her, calm and confident, making friends easily with everyone they met. People smiled when they saw him, admiring his gentle nature. At the park, children gathered around Shadow. They laughed and petted him carefully. Shadow stayed calm, enjoying the attention, but always returning to Emma's side. Emma felt proud. She realized that Shadow was not only her friend, but he could bring happiness to others as well. His kindness and calmness were noticed by everyone. Later, Emma and Shadow returned home. They rested in the garden, enjoying the warmth of the afternoon sun. Emma reflected on everything they had experienced together. Shadow had come to her door quietly, patiently, and with trust. She had welcomed him inside carefully, learning to respect his pace and feelings. Together they had explored forests, found hidden treasures, and shared quiet, joyful moments. Emma's heart was full of gratitude. Shadow had taught her about loyalty, patience, and the beauty of gentle friendship. She understood that the greatest treasures were not the hidden boxes or objects they had found, but the connection she shared with Shadow. That bond was priceless, lasting, and filled with love. As evening fell, Emma and her parents sat together in the living room. Shadow lay near her, calm and content. Emma's parents smiled at the sight. "You and Shadow have grown so close," her mother said. "It is beautiful to see such a strong friendship." Emma nodded, feeling happiness fill her chest. Emma hugged Shadow gently. "Thank you for choosing me," she whispered. Shadow leaned into her touch, his eyes warm and trusting. Emma realized that their story had begun with quiet patience at the door, but it had grown into something far greater, a friendship that would last a lifetime. That night, Emma and Shadow slept peacefully. The house felt warm, safe, and full of love. Emma dreamed of adventures they had shared and of those still to come. Shadow slept at her side, a quiet guardian and loyal friend, ready for every day with her. The following morning, the sun rose gently over the town. Emma opened the door and Shadow was already there, waiting patiently. She smiled. "Good morning, Shadow. Let's see what today brings." Shadow wagged his tail and stepped inside, ready to follow her. Emma knew that life with Shadow would always be filled with joy, laughter, and adventures. The hidden treasures they had found were only part of the story. The most important part was the bond they shared. Shadow had come to her door every morning and she had welcomed him into her life. Together they had discovered not just secrets of the forest, but the meaning of friendship, trust, and love. Emma hugged Shadow one last time before breakfast. "You are my forever friend," she whispered. Shadow leaned into her gently, a silent promise that he would always be by her side. Emma smiled, feeling happy and complete. She knew that whatever adventures, challenges, or discoveries lay ahead, they would face them together. From that day on, Shadow was not just a visitor at the door. He was family, a loyal companion, and a true friend. Emma felt grateful for the quiet mornings, the adventures in the forest, and the hidden treasures, but most of all, she felt grateful for the dog who had come to her door patiently every dawn and had chosen to stay forever. Emma looked at Shadow, who wagged his tail slowly and whispered softly, "Thank you for finding me." Shadow nudged her hand gently and Emma laughed. Their story had begun with curiosity, patience, and trust. Now it was a story of love, friendship, and a bond that would never be broken. The sun rose higher, the birds sang, and Emma and Shadow stepped into a new day together. With each moment, their friendship grew stronger, and their hearts were full. Life was brighter, happier, and full of possibilities because they had each other. And that was the greatest treasure of all.